Welcome to PTV News. We bring you another in our series of special reports about mental health. Children are back in school, but unfortunately some of their worst habits are back with them. These are the habits that follow them from home to school and from school to home, bringing down grades by getting in the way of homework. In this, the second of a series of special reports on mental health, we look first of all at video games and teenagers.
He just shot me, he had just killed his mom, and he takes the video game. No, nobody is ever going to convince me this is not a severe addiction.
Mark Petrick and his wife were shot by their 16-year-old son Danny, who was angry because they would not let him play his favorite video game.
And Danny came in and he just said, "Hey Mom, Dad, hey guys, can you do me a favor? I have a surprise for you guys. Can you close your eyes?"
Then he shot his mother 4 times, killing her instantly.
It grazed right across there.
Mark was shot in the head but survived. That was 4 years ago.
We had no clue that it was that serious or that he would get that angry over a video game.
Ryan Van Cleve thinks video game addiction is real. He compares his 2-decade-long obsession with playing video games to drinking compulsively. So now he doesn't play at all.
And it had cost me my friends, it had cost me my health, it was costing me all the relationships that were important to me, and it even cost me a good job.
In researching the subject, he says he didn't find any good books on the problem, so he decided to write a book about it.
And I realized that no one wanted to step forward and take on this responsibility and the shame that went with a pretty uncool, unhip addiction that a lot of people are going to debate whether it's addiction or not.
Some experts say there is no science to support it as an addiction. They say many people get involved in things that interest them that they spend a lot of time doing.
Video game addiction is not part of the diagnostic manual that's released by the American Psychiatric Association, nor is it something that has been studied in great depth to determine whether or not it is an addictive disease or not.
However, the psychiatric community is considering whether it is a real addiction or not. They are discussing including it in an appendix of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders in 2012 to encourage further study.
I do believe that there is video game addiction. There are some people who are compelled to be on their video games, and they do it as absolutely as much time as they can, and it interferes with their life.
But experts add playing video games too much is often a symptom of underlying problems. And extreme cases of people becoming violent because they are not able to play are something different.
That is something that's really quite disturbing and would suggest other problems in addition to an addiction.
Mark Petrick believes violent video games do have negative effects.
Most parents have no clue how bloody, how gory, how terrible these video games are.
Consumers can get guidance as video games have a rating system label on them that indicates the age appropriateness and the content. Danny Petrick says he will never go back to playing violent video games. He is serving a 23-year prison sentence. His family has forgiven him and visits him regularly. Marina Hutchinson, The Associated Press.
Thanks to Associated Press for that YouTube presentation. Video game addiction, or whatever one may wish to call excessive indulgence in that form of entertainment, is, along with too much TV, an area of concern for all parents with school-aged children. It certainly impacts homework, leading us to repeat the homework help tips given in our previous report. 1. Consider contacting their students' teachers for tips on how to help with specific homework assignments or projects. 2. They must find a quiet, well-lit place. Turn the television off and avoid distractions such as people coming and going. 3. Have materials on hand. The students might need paper or pencils to finish their homework, or a dictionary or other reference books. If special materials are needed for a project, parents must get them in advance. 4. Parents must set the time they should consider having children do homework at the same time every day. They mustn't let children leave homework until just before bedtime. Number 5, parents should be positive. They need to tell their children how important they think school is. 6, parents would do well to show how schooling relates to everyday life. The skills their children are learning are skills they as parents still use in some form. So when children work on reading, parents should consider reading too. And when they work on maths, parents can apply themselves to mathematical tasks like balancing checkbooks. 7. Parents should provide guidance. They should answer questions, but they must definitely refrain from giving answers or doing homework for children. 8. Parents need to watch out for frustrations. They should allow children short breaks whenever they are having real trouble concentrating and expressing frustrations. 9. Finally, parents should reward progress. If a child has been working hard, consistently completing homework, or doing a good job on a special project, consider a reward. Something simple that the child enjoys, like a pizza dinner or a trip to the beach. This can help reinforce the positive effort. Of course, Love Your Body, the theme of Wednesday's health fair, did not address this issue. Due attention was paid to the fact that diseases like diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, and some cancers can be prevented or made less serious by changes in lifestyle such as healthy eating and increased physical activity. It was noted that obesity is related to two of Montserrat's plagues, namely diabetes and hypertension, which among others have escalated to the point where leaders are proposing enactment of laws designed to stem the advancing tide. Still untouched, however, is the equally daunting prospect of a population in which up to 50% of adults will have succumbed to some form of mental illness if preventative steps are not taken. This was a forecast from a new study just published in the U.S. Newsmax.com reported that about half of American adults will develop mental illness in their lifetime. The source was a new report from the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention. In the report released last Thursday, the CDC recommended increased monitoring for mental problems and suggested that appropriate treatment could also help resolve other chronic health issues associated with mental illness. In Montserrat, meanwhile, the incidence of mental illness is mostly a matter of pure speculation. In fact, we have not been able to ascertain how many people in Montserrat are being treated for mental illness at this time. We have decided to include in this report the following World Health Organization report from YouTube to help dispel general ignorance about the incidence and seriousness of mental illness.
Mental illness is a largely neglected and invisible illness. Its symptoms cannot be detected in a simple blood test. It does not get passed on from one person to another by coughing or touching. And it's an illness shrouded in shame and stigma. Yet its impact is visible and global, with the poor and disadvantaged hardest hit. 1 in 4 people will suffer a mental, neurological or substance use disorder at some point in their lives. Yet many cannot get access to basic medicines or basic mental health care. They simply suffer in silence or in chains. More than 75% of people suffering from a serious mental health disorder in the developing world received no treatment in the previous 12 months. Epilepsy, for example, affects about 15 million people worldwide, 80% who live in the poorest parts of the world. In Africa, 9 out of 10 people suffering from epilepsy go untreated, unable to access simple and cheap anticonvulsant drugs. Patients are often taken to witch doctors and subjected to violent beatings to chase away evil spirits. Yet for just $5 a year, millions could get the drugs they desperately need. Mental health services in many parts of the developing world are clearly woefully inadequate. Mental health is largely ignored in global health. In many countries, funds assigned to mental health care programs are often less than 1% of overall spending on health. Patients, not just in poor but also rich countries, are often forced to remain against their will for weeks, months, or even years in psychiatric institutions, restrained by rusting chains, kept in caged beds, and denied clothing, food, and basic toilet facilities. Quite often, these mental disorders interact with other conditions like HIV and maternal and child health. In the developing world, almost 1 in 5 women experience significant mental health problems during pregnancy and after giving birth. Mental disorders simply push the poor even deeper into poverty. The time to act is now. The WHO Constitution defines health as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. Simple, low-cost solutions for the treatment and prevention of mental illness in low-income countries does exist. They're just out of reach. MHGAP is aimed at closing the gap between what is urgently needed and what is currently lacking. A huge gap that can only be closed through stronger partnerships, greater political will, and increased funding. The goal of the World Health Organization, according to Dr. Margaret Chan, its Director General, is to see that mental health is integrated into healthcare systems. Governments across the world need to see mental health as a vital component of primary health. We need to change policy and practice. Only then can we get the essential mental health services to the tens of millions in need. With proper care, counselling and medication, millions can be treated for depression, schizophrenia, suicide and epilepsy. MHGAP urges governments, international organisations and all mental health stakeholders to come together and work together. Human resources are particularly crucial for mental illness, especially in Africa and Asia. Caring for the mentally ill relies heavily on trained health workers, not costly technology or equipment. Mental illness is treatable and curable. Treatment is affordable. We simply cannot afford to ignore the global burden of mental health. After all, there is no health without mental health. The time to act is now.
Thanks for joining us, and join us again tomorrow when we bring you PTV News once again.